Imagine a scenario where conventional naval superiority means nothing, where a single unmanned vessel, costing a fraction of traditional weaponry, can penetrate hostile waters and neutralize an entire forward operating base before defensive systems even register the threat. This is no longer theoretical. It's operational reality in contemporary conflict zones. The operation begins at 0617 hours as an autonomous combat vessel detaches from its concealed staging area embedded in the muddy shoreline. The watercraft slides into the river's natural flow with minimal surface disturbance, creating almost no acoustic signature. Radio silence is absolute. The remote operator understands that hesitation is no longer an option. From this moment forward, success depends entirely on flawless execution within enemy-controlled territory. Planning phase is complete. This is pure operational implementation. Intelligence and targeting. Approximately 10 miles downstream lies a Russian staging facility currently operating under the assumption of security. 3 patrol vessels are moored in formation, positioned perpendicular to a rudimentary pier structure. Reconnaissance data indicates roughly 40 fuel containers arranged along the waterfront, accompanied by reserve outboard motors protected by tarpaulin covers, each generating distinctive thermal patterns detectable from altitude. Strategic assessment might classify this as a soft target. Operational reality reveals it as a high-risk engagement zone. The waterway provides virtually zero concealment the instant alarm systems activate. Any defensive response will have clear fields of fire across the entire approach corridor. Maintaining station at approximately 1,300 feet altitude, an aerial relay platform executes tight circular patterns. Through its thermal imaging suite, the objective manifests as multiple bright thermal blooms, each one identified, tracked, and recorded. Attack trajectories have been calculated and verified. The countdown has begun. Stealth approach protocol. The assault craft briefly increases velocity to 12 knots before deliberately reducing to a sustained 7. This represents calculated tactical discipline rather than random speed adjustment. Full throttle at this range would generate excessive noise propagation and visible wake turbulence, effectively announcing the vessel's presence to any competent observer. This isn't a frontal engagement. It's surgical infiltration, analogous to a weapon being prepared for use in complete silence. Embedded within the forward hull section sits a directional explosive device containing in excess of 30 kilograms of military-grade ordnance. The payload is live and armed, specifically engineered for one function: breaching reinforced steel structures and detonating fuel storage in a single catastrophic event. Upon impact, the kill radius extends 40 to 50 feet in all directions. Total devastation zone. The mission is active. Overhead, the surveillance platform transmits continuous micro-corrections to the flight path. Below, the operator implements infinitesimal rudder adjustments. Each meter of progress brings the explosive payload incrementally closer to the designated impact coordinates. The friendly fire gauntlet. The primary hazard isn't enemy contact, it's navigating past Allied defensive installations without triggering a friendly fire incident. Within approximately 120 seconds, the vessel must successfully transit past Ukrainian checkpoint positions equipped with crew-served weapons, thermal optics, and personnel authorized to engage unidentified contacts without warning. A single recognition failure or anomalous heat signature could result in mission termination via Allied weapons fire. At precisely 6:18 hours, the drone crosses into friendly territorial waters. A defensive position's monitoring display registers a new contact. Low-profile silhouette, deliberate movement pattern, no identification transponder. 500 feet upriver, a crew-served heavy machine gun traverses to track the thermal signature. The defensive position operator activates night vision equipment, achieving visual acquisition on the silhouette advancing through the water. From his perspective, it perfectly matches threat profile, compact design, thermal emission, tactical approach vector. Every indicator suggests enemy sabotage element. Identification protocol. To prevent fratricide, the operator executes what appears to be counterintuitive action. He completely releases manual control inputs. Electric propulsion reduces to minimum output, and the vessel continues forward purely on kinetic momentum, maintaining approximately 7 knots. Wake pattern smooths into minimal ripples. No aggressive maneuvers, no evasive responses. The communication at this point is behavioral rather than verbal. The aerial relay platform contracts its orbital pattern to 1,100 feet, broadcasting encrypted friendly authentication codes on secure frequencies. Simultaneously, an infrared identification strobe initiates a specific pulse sequence from the vessel's hull, a recognition pattern updated within the previous 24-hour cycle. While invisible to unaided human vision, it presents as a distinct beacon through night vision apparatus. The checkpoint gunner scans for the single verification element that determines engagement decision. Target acquired, the infrared pulse pattern. It corresponds exactly to the shift briefing parameters. Location, temporal window, and behavioral characteristics all validate friendly status. Had any single parameter deviated, lethal force authorization would have been immediate. The weapon system depresses, and within a fraction of a second, an armed explosive platform survives what could have been terminal friendly fire. The drone transits past the checkpoint without incident. No verbal challenges, no communication traffic. Total operational silence maintained throughout. Fratricide risk, destruction by friendly forces, occurs with far greater frequency than public awareness suggests. When tactical zones become compressed, individual soldiers have approximately 5 seconds to determine whether an unidentified contact represents friendly or hostile intent. Incorrect assessment results in either enemy penetration or operational sabotage of Allied assets. Entering hostile territory. Once the vessel clears the final friendly observation post, blue-on-blue threat probability decreases significantly, but an entirely new hazard emerges, one completely indifferent to authentication protocols or aerial corridors. The tactical environment is about to become aggressively hostile. At 0621 hours, the Russian installation experiences its final moments of operational normalcy. Vessels maintain standard mooring positions, fuel storage sits undisturbed, a perimeter guard registers an unusual acoustic signature, and immediately the thermal monitoring display erupts in brilliant white saturation as the assault craft initiates terminal velocity approach. The electric propulsion system surges to maximum output capacity. Acceleration profile: 0 to 35 knots in under 2 seconds. Behind the vessel, the river's surface churns into white foam turbulence. Terminal sprint phase has commenced. At this velocity, the craft consumes approximately 30 meters per second. Before defensive personnel can properly acquire and engage, the distance collapses. The forward camera feed becomes saturated with thermal bloom from fuel containers and metal hull plating rushing forward to dominate the entire field of view. No course deviation, no evasive maneuvering. Manual control disengaged. Terminal guidance systems assume complete authority. The warhead initiates detonation sequence, converting the vessel's total momentum into a concentrated, directional explosion focused precisely on target center mass. Catastrophic impact. The explosive shock wave propels the nearest patrol vessel vertically airborne, structural integrity failing mid-flight before wreckage impacts water surface. Fuel containers rupture in rapid sequence, generating a massive fireball surging 15+ meters into the atmosphere. The pier structure transforms into a violent inferno as stored munitions begin sympathetic detonation in the extreme heat environment. For multiple seconds, the water surface itself appears combustible as liquid petroleum spreads across the impact zone, coating wreckage and pier infrastructure in intense orange-red illumination. Personnel silhouette flee toward the riverbank, abandoning the very assets they were positioned to defend mere moments prior. At altitude, the reconnaissance drone experiences significant turbulence from overpressure wave, then reestablishes stable flight profile to document the devastation. Smoke begins dissipating before enemy defensive systems even activate. Electronic warfare sensors spike with desperate jamming signals. Russian countermeasures spring to operational status, flooding electromagnetic spectrum with interference targeting a threat signature that has already ceased to exist. The response cycle is inadequate and delayed. Video transmission experiences momentary fragmentation before stabilizing as the observation platform gains additional altitude. Optimizing viewing geometry. Primary objective, neutralized. However, this engagement transcends mere tactical success. It represents strategic messaging. A critical vulnerability has been exposed, and exploitation becomes the next phase objective. Swamp navigation. By 0626 hours, the Barracuda penetrates deeper into contested operational space. Extraction protocols are non-existent for this mission profile. As the vessel maneuvers into submerged vegetation zones, the visual horizon completely disappears. Reed formations reaching 4 to 5 meters vertically eliminate all celestial illumination. At water level, visibility approaches absolute zero. The forward optical sensor confronts complete darkness. Total environmental blackout. Effectively, the platform is operating without visual reference. Mission continues, but operational tempo undergoes dramatic modification. Velocity reduces to approximately 6 knots. Greater speed risks collision with submerged obstacles. The river has transformed into an obstacle field of waterlogged timber and debris accumulated from seasonal flooding. Impact at 20 knots would compromise drive shaft integrity or breach hull structure. Catastrophic mission failure. At 6 knots, obstacles become avoidable. The aerial relay platform hovering at altitude becomes a sole navigation reference source. Its thermal imaging camera maintains downward orientation. Image refresh rate 60 Hz. The display renders the riverbed in thermal gradient variations. Submerged timber presents as ghostly white signatures, while silt remains dark negative space. Temperature variance of 2 to 3 degrees constitutes the only differentiation between safe navigation corridor and catastrophic collision. The operator adjusts control inputs with surgical precision. Minimal left input, pause. Minimal right input, pause. The process resembles precision surgery more than vehicle operation. Electric propulsion generates minimal acoustic signature, quieter than ambient current flow against hull surfaces. Wake pattern is essentially non-existent, absorbed by dense vegetation before propagation. For approximately 3 minutes, the craft navigates through gaps measuring barely 3 meters in width. Vegetation makes simultaneous contact with port and starboard hull surfaces. Thermal detection provided just-in-time warning. This operational phase isn't about radar evasion, it's about disciplined patience. However, every elapsed second represents calculated risk assessment. Extended duration in the vegetation zone increases aerial detection probability. Acceleration guarantees self-inflicted destruction. Excessive duration, and they locate you. Exposure phase. By 0630 hours, the vegetation opens significantly. River depth increases. Current velocity accelerates. Concealment evaporates. The covert infiltration phase concludes, and the Barracuda enters exposure for any surveillance platform monitoring the waterway. At 0631 hours, the river widens dramatically and protective concealment disappears entirely. As the assault craft exits the flooded timber zone, the tactical situation inverts instantaneously. Protective reed formations vanish and the channel expands to approximately 300 feet width. For the first time during the entire mission, the drone is completely exposed on open water. Electric propulsion remains acoustically minimal, but thermal imaging reveals different reality. The hull generates thermal signature comparable to a bright flare against cold water background. Moments ago, detection was impossible. Now any platform within hundreds of meters can track it. Above, the relay drone identifies the developing threat first, thermal signature flickering at display periphery. Then enemy unmanned aerial vehicles arrive. 2 Russian FPV drones, one maintaining overwatch altitude, one executing aggressive attack dive. This isn't reconnaissance patrol. This is active engagement with lethal intent. The primary attack unit descends from 600 feet altitude, accelerating substantially, achieving approximately 70 miles per hour terminal velocity. It will intercept the Barracuda in under 10 seconds. Evasion is tactically impossible, and aggressive maneuvering would only enhance targeting solution for enemy operator. Electronic warfare intervention. The pilot responds immediately, terminating power supply completely. Without propulsion, The boat coasts on residual momentum, drifting laterally into dense reed formations along the bank. With engine thermal signature eliminated, hull heat signature begins rapid decline. Within seconds, it disappears into background thermal noise. Warm mud, submerged organic material, decaying vegetation. The Russian attack drone passes at extremely low altitude, approximately 15 meters above surface, searching for target acquisition that no longer exists. It executes banking maneuvers once, twice, no thermal lock achieved. The enemy pilot hesitates. Speculation means asset expenditure without confirmation. The secondary drone attempts repositioning, but the engagement window has closed. 14 kilometers to the rear, a Ukrainian electronic warfare installation rotates its antenna array toward the operational sector. A focused cone of jamming signals saturates radio frequencies, disrupting Russian control band communications. On thermal display, the primary attack drone flight path becomes erratic and unstable. 3 seconds later, propulsion fails and the unit plunges into the water. The wingman attempts vertical escape trajectory, but jamming signals track the movement, forcing it into vegetation. Silence returns to the operational space. The pilot maintains position discipline. 5 seconds elapsed. 10 seconds. Airspace is clear. Gradually, the Barracuda reactivates propulsion and exits concealment. Through atmospheric haze, the final approach phase initiates. They've survived the ambush, but concealment options are exhausted. Terminal phase. At 0636 hours, the river opens to full width. This represents the irreversible commitment point. The drone clears vegetation and enters open water. Directly ahead, less than 700 feet distance, the Russian base presents on thermal scope like an intense heat source. 3 small craft, fuel drum storage, and pier structure glowing with residual thermal energy from recently operated engines. Target positive identification confirmed. The operator engages maximum throttle input. Electric motor accelerates from idle to full power in less than 2 seconds. The bow elevates as the craft achieves planing configuration, velocity exceeding 30 knots, then 35. At maximum operational velocity, the platform achieves nearly 40 knots, consuming 30 meters per second. On thermal feed display, the wake trail resembles a comet trajectory, a burning vector aimed directly at enemy core position. Russian personnel react, but the engagement is already determined. Figures scramble along shore positions. One rotates toward acoustic signature. Another attempts to acquire rifle, but distance closure exceeds human reaction time capability. At this velocity, split-second delay equals terminal outcome. Static interference erupts across video feed as Russian jamming systems activate in panic mode, flooding the operational zone with electromagnetic interference. Video transmission fragments and experiences latency. Control input slips momentarily, but trajectory vector is already locked. Manual input is no longer required for mission completion. 300 feet range. The spotter provides range call. 200 feet, 100 feet. Camera feed whites out completely with glare and thermal bloom. Manual controls disengaged. Mission execution complete. Detonation sequence. The warhead initiates detonation, directing explosive force outward and downward, effectively converting the entire boat into a directed energy shockwave. One Russian patrol vessel is propelled completely clear of water surface like a discarded object. Multiple fuel containers rupture simultaneously, generating a fireball that surges 15+ meters vertically into the atmosphere. Adjacent to impact point, a second vessel experiences complete structural failure at dock position. Its heavy propulsion unit ejected into surrounding vegetation. Chain reaction detonations illuminate the harbor area for sustained duration. Ammunition storage areas explode in sympathetic detonation. Petroleum products ignite on water surface, and debris disperses in all vectors. The explosive shock wave impacts the surveillance drone at altitude, generating violent instability before the platform reestablishes stable flight profile and maintains video feed. By 0639 hours, the installation effectively ceases to exist as a functional asset. Nothing remains except smoldering wreckage. Downstream, the natural current gradually disperses the evidence. Strategic implications. What has been documented here wasn't a conventional naval operation requiring multiple vessels, nor was it a precision missile strike costing millions in resources. It was a single autonomous maritime platform executed with precise timing and cold technical methodology, eliminating a critical Russian riverine asset within minutes. Zero advance warning, zero opportunity for recovery. This represents the contemporary face of 21st century warfare, where innovative tactical approaches merge with advanced technology and precise intelligence to deliver disproportionate effects. Compact autonomous platforms are fundamentally rewriting military doctrine, demonstrating that traditional size and firepower advantages no longer guarantee operational success. The critical question emerges: will these autonomous systems become the decisive factor in future military conflicts? As technology continues advancing and these platforms become increasingly sophisticated, we're witnessing a fundamental transformation in warfare methodology, where a small, silent machine operated remotely can accomplish objectives that previously required substantial conventional forces. The implications extend far beyond this individual engagement. We're transitioning into an era where asymmetric warfare capabilities enable smaller forces to effectively challenge conventional military superiority through technological innovation and creative tactical implementation. The barriers to entry are declining, precision is increasing, and the psychological impact of these silent, autonomous hunters is substantial. Modern warfare is evolving, efficient, precise, and advancing at unprecedented velocity. The traditional calculus of military power is being rewritten by platforms that cost less, risk fewer lives, and deliver effects that were previously impossible without massive resource expenditure. The strategic landscape is shifting beneath our feet, and autonomous systems are leading that transformation.